Who has been the most underrated Cowboys player through the first 10 games? All that and more in this episode of Locked On Cowboys Podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. We are answering your Twitter questions today. We've got a bunch of really good ones, so let's jump right into it. Landon, our first question comes from Carlos. He wants to know, who is your most underrated and overrated Cowboy this season?
Man, for this season, right?
Just this
I think
season.
that makes it for an interesting kind of conversation. As far as underrated goes, I think that's tougher because we talk about these guys all the time. So I'll go ahead and say that I don't know that we're quite appreciating enough of how good Tyler Smith is playing. I think that's the situation where we talk about it, right, and we see it week to week, and I don't think, much in the same way that we kind of very easily took for granted that he was able to slip out to play left tackle last year and kind of do so at a rate that was pretty incredible for a rookie that didn't get that opportunity to play that in training camp. I think we're starting to see that he's the best. I think it's safe to call him the best offensive lineman on this team right now. I mean, I think if Tyron Smith is having a conversation right now,
I think I'd go Tyron, but
I think it's probably pretty close at this point. But I think that Tyler's probably put together more consistent good weeks. Honestly, I think Tyron, since the Thursday practice thing, has been unstoppable. But I think from poll to poll, Tyler Smith's been very good. So I still think that we're kind of underappreciating just how good a player we've gotten with Tyler Smith. But I think that has everything to do with the position he plays. Who's your underrated?
I'm going to go with Stefan Gilmore. Deron Bland has been the story of of the Cowboys this week with the 4 touchdowns and the 6 interceptions this season. But Stefan Gilmore has been everything the Cowboys hoped for and more for a lot of reasons. Like, have you noticed him giving up a lot of big plays? No. Has he gotten a lot of turnovers? I think he only has 1 or 2 on the season.
2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 2. Do you know how many yards he's given up the last 2 games combined?
It's not a ton. I don't, but I know that I haven't. I know that while watching the tape the other night, I saw a ball that went to a receiver that was near him, and I was like, you're not seeing that very often.
Yeah.
So
he's only given up 27 yards total in the last 2 games. He only has 7 targets. Like, teams just aren't targeting him because he's still really good. And we talk about Bland, we talk about Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and all these other players. The Cowboys stole like a top 15, top 20 cornerback for a late round pick, and it just doesn't seem like we're talking about it that much.
Yeah, speaking of stats that maybe we haven't talked about enough, there is a stat that's floated around a lot of different platforms that we haven't really discussed, and that's the fact that the Cowboys defense has still yet to give up a 100-yard receiver or 100-yard rusher.
Yep.
And obviously Gilmore's a big part of that. I mean, I think teams are looking at what Deron Bland's doing, maybe shying away a little bit more. But all throughout that transition before Bland became known as an all-pro caliber player, which I guess we can kind of be saying now. Yep. Gilmore was cornerback 1 for a couple weeks while they were figuring out, and then obviously seamlessly transitioned to the kind of us cornerback 2 role. But all throughout that time, was able to produce at a high level, or at least keep the production from his receivers down. So I think that's a really good name for sure.
I got a stat really quickly on Stefan Gilmore. So he has a forced incompletion percentage of over 18% this year. That is the highest that he's had since he was Defensive Player of the Year in 2018. Like,
that's good.
you're getting outstanding cornerback play, and he's not even the best corner on this team right now, which is absolutely incredible. I can't imagine where this team would be right now if they didn't have Stefan Gilmore. Like, if it was just Deron Bland and now you're having to roll out Noah Igbenogany and Jordan Lewis more and Nashawn, right? Like, I just don't feel like he's gotten enough credit for how good he's been. Let's go on the other side. Who's been the most overrated Cowboy through 10 games?
I'm going to say this, and I want everyone to know that I think this is temporary. I don't know what's going on for sure. But Zack Martin has really struggled these last few weeks.
We love Zack Martin. I've got a jersey of Zack Martin that's autographed right behind me. So we love Zack.
We love Zack, and I don't believe this to be a permanent thing at all. He just looks like there's something not right. He's like stiff. He's not, his foot fire is not as quick. He's losing power on contact at times when it seems like when he would normally be powering through guys. The tape this last week was maybe the worst Zack Martin tape I've seen on a long time, or honestly, at least until a couple weeks ago. I feel like he had a bad game. Was it against the Chargers maybe, or I can't remember, but it does feel like he is not right, and he's not playing up to his normal level, and not even to a level that we saw him earlier in the season. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, and we know this because in week 3, he hurt his ankle. He's been on the injury report. I believe it was at week 3, week 4, week 5. He missed the week 3 game against the Cardinals. He came back, struggled in that one. You could see when he's on tape that ankle is heavily wrapped. I gotta believe that he's probably still feeling some kind of effects from that injury.
Yeah, and you like I said, it's on tape.
You can see it.
It's pretty clear. He's just not able to sustain the way he normally would be, able to power through blocks the way he normally would be, and just the way he's moving doesn't look as athletic as it normally does. So
yeah.
Again, I hate to use overrated here for Zack Martin, but I think if we're talking about a guy that is not playing up to his standard, own standard, I think that's Zack Martin right now.
And unfortunately, this stretch is probably going to be very tough for him, right? You do have 3 home games right in a row, but you're going to be playing a lot of football against some better teams coming up. I have a hard time believing he's suddenly going to get healthier by the time that we get to mid-December, but we shall see. Anybody on the defensive side of the ball? I nobody jumps to mind for me. I think Martin was the guy on offense, but anybody for you on defense?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I mean, I hate to kind of go against the question a little bit, and I don't know if overrated again is the proper terminology here, but I think it's time to recognize the kind of up and down nature of Jonathan Hankins' game. He had a really great game against the Giants. I think he really struggled against Carolina. It seems like he just had a couple different times where he was pushed out of the hole or jumped around in the gap and guessed incorrectly. And it just seems like you're not getting week in and week out consistency from Jonathan Hankins, even as a run defender. It feels like he's not even when he's bad, he's not terrible, but it's still not, you're not getting the good Jonathan Hankins, consistently week in and week out. It feels like you get maybe 2 good games and then a bad game, or 2 bad games and then a good game. And you'd love to see a little bit more consistency, especially as the season kind of winds on a little bit. And after watching the Carolina game, part of me wonders if that's a little bit why the Carl Davis move was made. I mean, for those who don't know, Carl Davis was a big nose tackle. The Cowboys just signed a former Patriots and former Raven, and he played for
Iowa. Yeah.
Iowa guy. Yeah. I certainly remember when he came out. And so I think that they, looking for a little bit more consistency at the nose tackle spot is maybe something they were trying to do when they signed him, because Hankins is good. Like I said, you're getting some good games from him, but at the level of consistency that you were looking for, especially something in run defense, you'd really like to see a little bit more.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys' 2nd round pick at tight end, who caught his 2nd touchdown of his career in Week 10. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seats before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All in prices show your total upfront so that you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. You can buy your tickets in a matter of seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. All you have to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. This time of year, it can be a lot. It's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety. Now that we're getting close to the holidays, we've got these seasonal blues that come up. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the stress and all the change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and flexible and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Find the bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Every day, we will be back on Wednesday to preview this Cowboys Commanders Thanksgiving matchup. We also wanted to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering the league every single day. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Landon, next question. This one from Preston. He wants to know, I'm still very confused on the drafting of Luke Schoonmaker in the second round. If we're just going to use Jake Ferguson like this, why draft Luke at all?
Because you need more than one tight end? I don't know. Like I don't understand this question now, and I really don't even understand how we're using Ferguson in a way that wouldn't include a second tight end, to be honest.
I see this a lot, though, on Twitter. People are still very upset that the Cowboys used the second round pick on a tight end.
I mean, I can't help you there. The Cowboys needed a tight end. I think, look, having schematic diversity and having the ability to kind of move into multiple formations, that's part of what the Cowboys offense is about. And I think you need to have multiple tight ends. And I think if you had not had Schoonmaker coming into the season, you would have been in real trouble. And I think it's not as easy to point out because Schoonmaker is averaging one target a game or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's giving you a ton of snaps as a blocker, and he's doing pretty good for a rookie tight end as a run blocker. And especially when accounting for the fact that the guy that was supposed to be your number 2 tight end is now we're in week 11 and we still have yet to see him play yet. And the guy that was behind him that we had thought was a little bit more reliable, no offense, Marcus, hasn't played very well. So I think, as much disrespect as Schoon seemingly gets on Twitter a lot, like he does a lot of dirty stuff. He plays a ton of special teams. He blocks well, both as a pass blocker and a run blocker. And I think that you're starting to see him start to kind of get it together as a receiver. And I think that if he does kind of get it together and starts to use that body the way that he can, I think it's going to take this red zone offense to a new spot, And I still very much believe in Schoonmaker mostly because, as we said, we are now 11 weeks into his rookie year, and he's a tight end, guys. This is something that, tight ends and DTs take a while. Unfortunately, we took a DT and a tight end in that order. So
middle linebacker that got hurt. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, guess what? Those guys are coming along. Like Mozzie's starting to play. Mozzie had a pressure last week on a nice pass rush move. Yeah. Schoonmaker had a touchdown. So I think, if anything, you saw the two much maligned Michigan men who got drafted in the first and second round start to kind of put it together this week. So I would have asked this question last week, and you probably would have gotten a better response. But I don't know. I think for me, it makes sense. You needed another tight end. You've got to have that kind of scheme diversity. And if you're going to take such a big step back every time you're in 12 personnel, without the kind of depth at that position, you're going to be relegated to one sort of formation, and you better hope that your guys can win every single time if you're running 11 personnel over and over and over.
And you better hope that you never get injuries at wide receiver. Now, the Cowboys have been fortunate, knock on wood, to not get any massive injuries. Now, CeeDee Lamb is dealing with an ankle injury. It sounds like he should be good to go to play on Thursday, but let's say for whatever reason he can't play, or that he's severely limited. I don't know if you're going to want to play a bunch of 11 personnel, right? I mean, you're still going to play a significant
amount. Play 11
personnel. Yeah, you're going to want to use something different. I will also say Schoon has 2 touchdowns this year. There was a good chance that he's has like 5 or 6 touchdowns at this point, right? The touchdown against the Eagles was about that far away. If you're listening to it, just put your fingers together. That's how close he was to scoring a touchdown. He had another touchdown, I think, was it in the Patriots game where Dak put on him in the end zone and he just got hit and dropped it. I think he's going to be a big red zone weapon for this team. It's clear that the Cowboys are kind of targeting him in that area. That's going to be important. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, because Ferguson's a much more well-rounded receiver, but Schoon's just bigger and more athletic, and you can throw him the ball up high and he can go make plays on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think having now 2 guys who can block, because Ferguson is a much better blocker than Schultz was last year, even just because he's stronger. I think that really helps. It really helps with the 12 personnel if you want to run the football, or if you want to throw it. You can have a guy like Schoon who can come in. He hasn't done it a ton. He's probably done it like 15 snaps or so in the season, but those are valuable snaps where he can come in and be a pass protector.
I got the numbers right here. So since week 2, when he's really played more, he has 18 pass blocking snaps, 1 pressure allowed.
Yeah, I mean, that's valuable when you need that extra body in there for blocking, for max protect, so you can get the ball down the field against a team that's coming after you. Having a tight end that can operate as a smaller tackle to kind of help you out.
Functional blocker, right? That's sometimes all you need is a functional blocker, and he's been that. Should mention, this week, according to Pro Football Focus, he was the highest graded tight end in the NFL, had his best game of the season. It's also important to remember, he was dealing with a pretty significant foot injury in training camp. We didn't think we'd see him in the preseason at all. I think over the last couple of games, he's really started to play better. And you just have more diversity on offense. You can play 2 tight ends. You can play 3 tight ends. You can play 21 personnel. You just have a lot of different options when you have more than just receivers and running backs in your offense.
And hey, if, look, I mean, I just said Hendershot hasn't started coming back until this week, but frankly, now that he is back, having all 3 of these tight ends, as opposed to having Hendershot try to function in that tight end 2 role, that's a better role. The tight end 3 role is a better role for Hendershot, because he can do what they need him to do, to use his skill set. He's not a great blocker. He's not going to, bury guys like this, but you can still, now that you've got Schooney, you can put Hendershot where you need to in order to kind of avail yourself of his skill set, which is obviously very different than those other 2 guys.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Cowboys running back situation, including Tony Pollard's future with the team, next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. Last week we recommended that you go bet on the Cowboys to beat the Panthers. If you did that, you have $150 in bonus bets sitting in your account. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can bet on the MVP race, such as Dak Prescott, who saw his odds go from 40-1 to 15-1 this week on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Landon, let's finish up with this question from Eduardo. He wants to know, do you believe that the Cowboys will move on from Tony Pollard next year, and how has he played so far?
I can't really answer the second part. I mean, it's too tough to know right now. We've got to know how the rest of the season goes, I think, in order to kind of get an idea. I think they don't really have any plans. They don't have anything in the cooker, I think that they maybe thought that they could get some Deuce Vaughn in there and feel confident about making him the kind of Tony Pollard, and maybe to go and try to find another back to be that other, bruiser kind of role. But I think they're nowhere with Deuce Vaughn as it stands right now. So I think I'll answer the last part kind of first, I guess, is that I do think that Pollard has played better football these last 2 weeks. I think he looks healthier than he has. I commented, was it last week, that I felt like the second half of last week's game, he looked like a different back than he did in the first half in a positive way. And I think that you've seen that continued progression this week, right? That wind back toss that they ran with the inside zone. I mean, first of all, that's a gorgeous play that they stole from the 49ers. I'm so glad that they did steal that. Shout out to Jeff Blasco for taking that right out of the playbook. And second of all, I think you saw the kind of Tony Pollard that we're used to seeing, right? The burst, the explosion, the ability to break tackles, to run through tacklers. I think you saw that all on display in that run. So I do think that you're starting to see him kind of get healthier. Now, I mean, I think there are two forces working against each other, right? Like, as he starts to get more and more carries, his body's going to start kind of feeling
wearing
that.
down.
As he gets further away from the injury, his body's starting to feel a little bit better. So I do wonder where those two kind of opposing forces meet. But I think as it stands right now, you're starting to see an improved Tony Pollard. The question is for how long, and does that eventually kind of go the other way as the touches start to pile on a little more?
Yeah, he definitely looked better in this game. You saw some of the explosiveness. I mean, on that one crack play you were talking about, he looked great. On the touchdown run, I thought he looked really good. I am curious about the future of the running back position for the Cowboys, because I don't know if you've looked at their salary cap situation or who's under contract. Here's the list of running backs the Cowboys have under contract next year. It's Deuce Vaughn, who was a sixth-round pick, who's been a healthy scratch for most of the year. And it's Hunter Lipke, who is a fullback tight end hybrid that's an undrafted free agent. And that's it. Rico Dowdle.
Sounds like we're good to go.
I mean, you're asking
200 touches to Hunter Lipke, right? They think, what's the problem? Sounds like
you're talking to the two wrong guys here about the I don't know. Because part of me could see that maybe Pollard comes back on a 2-year deal at name the price, $12 million, because the running back market is so dried up. Maybe Pollard just tries to go get cash in and get a big payday somewhere else. If I had to bet on what happens, my bet is that the Cowboys bring back Rico Dowdle on basically like a vet minimum contract, and then they probably spend a second-round pick on a running back, and maybe they bring in somebody else. But it's a very murky situation for the Cowboys.
I think for me, I'm living in the world now where you go and get the Rico Dowdle guy however you can, right? Like, whether it's a late round pick, a free agent guy, an undrafted free agent guy. I feel like I love Rico Dowdle, but Rico Dowdle is the definition of the kind of guy that you can get from almost anywhere.
Well,
right?
I mean, I think he's basically going to be somebody who just gets vet minimum. Like you're not paying him.
Oh no, I'm just talking roles right now, right?
Role,
Like,
yeah.
That type of back is the kind that you can probably get. I think what I'm getting at is that I think the plan moving forward for running back should be go find that Rico Dowdle guy. However, right, sign him off the street, undrafted free agent, find that guy. It's not easy, but there's lots of different ways to find that.
Yes, there's lots of options.
The Pollard guy is the one that you need to spend resources on, like the special juice guy, right? Like I think it's kind of almost like the Jamar Gibbs model, right? I don't know that you want to spend a first round pick necessarily on the position, but I think those are if you're gonna spend like a
home run
round,
hitters.
You're spending them on the home run hitters because those are the more unique athletes, the harder ones to find, right? So I think that's how they need to handle it. Pollard still can be the juice guy, I think. I mean, I think I wouldn't be shocked if Pollard went back to form next year. Like if he was like closer to where he was previous
I wouldn't be
season.
surprised.
So I'm not at all opposed to the Cowboys trying to re-sign him for a good deal. At the same time, if they are going to go the route of trying to replace him, I don't think they can skimp at that spot. They need to like, invest in a juice guy.
I just think through the draft is the best way to do that.
Yeah, and probably middle rounds, right? Or
maybe even
late day 1 or day 2.
I was gonna say even if you want,
late day 2. How about day 2?
I was gonna say day 2, like that's fine. That's when you take the guy that ran the 4.39 40-yard dash. Like, and frankly, we've seen a lot of these guys go on day 2 that have been really good. Breece Hall was a second round pick. Like, if you want to spend the 45th pick on the draft on Breece Hall, that's fine. It's not a big deal, but. I think that's what you're targeting. I think the days of I'm just going to give you like an archetype. The Najee Harris round 1 running back, the 6'2", 225 grinder types. I just don't see the point of ever doing that anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the idea of trying to get everything in one back, it's unnecessary.
You don't need
and it's also once you have it, it's not actually any better than having those two guys, right?
No.
Having 2 guys, because ultimately, you become more injury resistant with 2 guys. You can find guys that can step in to do the other half if there's an injury. I just think that, like the big body bruiser types, even the rare ones, even the Henrys of the world, like there is an advantage to having them, but the advantage doesn't meet the cost of paying for those kind of players.
Yes.
So that's the
100% agree. You just look around the league right now. There's a lot of teams that are investing on day 2, but that's Miami with like Devin Achane. Now Miami's just they're grabbing all these speed running backs, and it's probably not a bad idea. Just target speed. Look at Baltimore getting Keaton Mitchell, who ran a 4.28 40-yard dash. Speed is kind of the name of the game at running back right now. You probably don't need to pay for it, but you probably should chase it in the draft. And I got a feeling the Cowboys probably will next year in 2024. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Again, every day we will be back on Wednesday to preview Cowboys Commanders. We've got crossover shows coming on Thursday, so make sure you tune in for that. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow the show on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I'm @Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.